CDN News at 8, live from Carmel Catholic High School, with Vance Conway, Simutis, Aaron Risley, Sports with Liam Brown, and Chief Meteorologist Willie Gillespie.
Good morning, Carmel. I'm Aaron Risley.
And I'm Hope Simutis. It's 8:03. There will be a mandatory meeting for any girl interested in trying out for girls soccer this upcoming spring season after school on Friday, February 3rd at 3:15 p.m. in room SC7, or Mr. Spoody's room.
There will also be a mandatory meeting for any girls interested in playing lacrosse this season, Thursday, February 2nd after school in room 806.
Up next, we have a video with Mrs. Fitzpatrick, followed by an interview with Mr. Nyland. CDN News will be right back.
Black History Month began in 1915, and it was when Carter G. Woodson, who is a graduate from University of Chicago and also earned his doctorate from Harvard, he traveled to D.C. to celebrate like the 50th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And thousands of African Americans went to D.C. for this celebration. And it was during that time that Carter G. Woodson just realized the accomplishments of African Americans despite the years of being enslaved, and he wanted to come up with something to focus on those accomplishments. So he decided to have an organization, and it was originally called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. That eventually became known as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. By 1926, we had something called Negro History Week. The Negro History Week was like the third week in February, and that kind of coincided with Abraham Lincoln's birthday and also Frederick Douglass's birthday. So then by the 60s, when it became the month-long celebration, it was again just to spend more time on focusing on our accomplishments. And then in 1976, Gerald Ford, our president, declared it a month-long celebration. You know, we tend to focus on like Dr. King and Rosa Parks, but the African American community has had so many accomplishments in lots of different areas: academics, arts, athletics, politics. I think that a lot of times when we talk about Black history, we focus a lot on the traumatic multiple centuries of enslavement, and I think we need to focus more on our resilience and what we've been able to accomplish despite that horrible history. So I would challenge you to just pick your area of interest, whether you're interested in engineering, whether you're interested in being a doctor or a veterinarian or an artist or a dancer. You can search within your area of interest for famous Black Americans and see how they overcame obstacles to get where they are today.
Good morning, Carmel. I'm here with our dean, Mr. Nyland, and we have him on the show for Student Appreciation of Teachers Day here during Catholic Schools Week. So, Mr. Nyland, how is Carmel different from when you were a student?
Good morning, Hope. You know, Carmel is very different. When I was here, I graduated in 1998. Obviously, technology plays a big role in that, whether it's social media or computers. We were just getting started with that. As far as Catholic Schools Week go, you know, I don't know that I remember it specifically when I was here, but I've come to appreciate the fact that when I was here, I didn't realize how important this week was to celebrate the identity of being at a Catholic school, because it really is a very cool, very unique thing, and it's celebrated in coordination with you know, schools all across the country to celebrate that faith aspect.
Awesome. So how can students appreciate their teachers today? Because, you know, teachers are really shapers of the identity here at Carmel.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I do think it is important to recognize the work that faculty and staff put into it. I think a simple thank you is an easy win if people want to hop into notes of gratitude, but recognizing important people in your development as you've gone through high school, because it is a calling, it is a vocation to be here, and it's important to have that recognition of role models.
And as our final question for today, how did you appreciate your teachers when you were a student?
You know, I've always tried to be kind to them. I think that's really important. But the fact that I'm here, there's still a few teachers that taught me here in the building. We won't name them here, but is recognition of their importance in my life. So maintaining those connections and communications, even in the years after that, becomes really important.
All right, thank you for coming on today. We'll be right back with CDN News.
Okay, today we're talking to Father Christian about Pope Emeritus Benedict and his legacy and his life. Let's start off prior to becoming Pope. What are some of Benedict's career highlights that you could tell us about?
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I would say that Pope Benedict is really, above all, known as a theologian. I would say he is one of the greatest theologians of the 20th and 21st centuries, and his contributions there in that scope of theology will certainly continue to impact the Catholic Church and the world for decades and decades to come. Particularly was his interest in talking about faith and reason, faith seeking understanding, but also understanding seeking reason.
Okay. And when did he become a priest, and what was kind of his career trajectory from there?
Yeah, he was born in 1927 as Joseph Ratzinger in Bavaria, Germany, and responded to God's call to become a priest. So he was ordained a Catholic priest in 1951, serving the Diocese of Munich. And he also received his doctorate in theology from the University of Munich, which is really cool. And he became a member of the Theological Advisory Committee for his bishop as a priest, and served then at the Second Vatican Council. And that council was an instrumental moment in the history of the Church that ran from 1962 through 1965. And as a young priest, he was there at the Second Vatican Council, serving as an advisor, serving as a theologian. So that's really remarkable. And he eventually rises to the office of bishop, becoming Archbishop of Munich and Freising. And in 1981, that's when Pope John Paul II appointed him to be the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith. And that's basically the dicastery in Rome that serves as the body overseeing Catholic doctrine, making sure that sound Catholic doctrine is defended and also promulgated too. And then he becomes Pope Benedict XVI in 2005 and serves as the Roman Pontiff for nearly 8 years until he resigns in February of 2013.
And what did that resignation mean for the Church?
That's quite fascinating as well, and people that reflect on that have said to the media as well that only a great man does something like that. So I think this hasn't happened in over 600 years that a pope chooses to resign his office, but it shows his great humility, his great ability for self-reflection and introspection and prayer with the Lord particularly, that he is able to be in touch with what is God calling him to do in this current moment and in his current role and vocation as the Pope. And he very generously, I would say, responded to that call that he felt from God to, at this point, resign and to allow a successor to now guide the Church. And that's because, as he mentioned, Pope Benedict mentioned, due to health issues and just not having the energy to really give his position in office like 100%. That's part of his discernment in terms of choosing to resign.
And so you kind of started a little bit about his contributions and what that means for the future of the Church. Mm-hmm. Maybe kind of go back through that again. Just a little bit, like touch on what his life means for the future of the Church, or even as Christians sitting in classrooms all over this school.
You know, as I mentioned, he's a remarkable theologian, and if you're interested in reading an excellent theology book that is really an elucidation of the Apostles' Creed, I would recommend Introduction to Christianity, written by Joseph Ratzinger. But he is really a brilliant man, and as I mentioned, his passion really was to look at faith seeking understanding and understanding seeking faith. And he would use the term the creative reason, referring to the logos. And what he meant by that was that culture, which is really fascinating, culture is a byproduct of worship and having this dialogue and relationship with the living God, known as the creative reason. And it's really remarkable how he is able to engage the world in that kind of dialogue and to show the complementarity of faith and reason and vice versa as well. And I would also say that as a figure for the church, he really knew the Lord as a prominent figure, of course, as Pope especially. He had a witness of prayer and preaching the gospel and having that deep friendship with Jesus, whereby despite his gifts and talents, which for sure were multifarious, he, above all though, was grounded in that relationship and friendship with the Lord Jesus, and that guided everything he did, and his desire to do God's will, which, as I mentioned too, led to that big decision of choosing to resign.
Very good. Well, thank you for talking with us today, and I hope everyone learns a little bit more about this great guy.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Diversity and Equity Club will have their next meeting on Thursday, February 2nd during the lunch waves. Please bring your lunch and snacks will be provided. That's all we have for today. As always, I'm Erin Risley.
And I'm Hope Samidas. Have a wacky Wednesday, Carmel.